It's kind of crazy when you really think about it, just how much the world loves ice cream.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we're talking a global market predicted to jump from what? $79 billion to over 132 billion by 2032.
Yeah.
That's a lot of frozen treats.
It's a testament to our collective sweet tooth, isn't it?
It really is. And that universal craving, that little voice in your head whispering, "Hey, wouldn't a scoop of something cold and sweet be amazing right now?"
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Indeed. And for those of you joining us, whether you're just a casual ice cream enthusiast or someone who, meticulously strategizes their dessert choices,
Yeah.
we get it. You want to get to the good stuff without wading through a ton of fluff.
Exactly.
So consider this your express lane to understanding the world of ice cream, a deep dive, if you will.
A deep dive indeed.
Yeah.
Welcome to this deep dive where we're going to be digging into the surprisingly twisty history and the delightfully strange world of ice cream and its slightly more refined Italian cousin, gelato.
We've got a whole smorgasbord of information to explore today, with a Forbes article highlighting some of the wildest ice cream flavors out there, Wikipedia entries giving us the lowdown on gelato and sherbet, a handle the heat guide for those who, like to get their hands dirty in the kitchen.
The culinary adventurers.
Exactly. A YouTube video transcript packed with some additional insights, an Aggie and Kosh unit that goes deep into the definitions and standards of what actually constitutes ice cream.
The nitty-gritty.
And of course, a really fascinating look back at the invention of ice cream itself from history.
A real trip down memory lane. So what's our mission today?
Well, our mission, I think, is delightfully complex, but simply put, we want to uncover those hidden stories, those unexpected twists, those aha moments that are tucked away within the story of ice cream. From its ancient, almost mythical origins to the, wait, did they really put that in ice cream? Flavor combinations hitting the scene today. We're going to be your guides. We want to make you the most informed and, let's be honest, maybe a little bit smug person at your next ice cream social.
And maybe share a few laughs along the way.
Exactly. So, shall we embark on this delicious deep dive?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, first things first, we got to peel back the layers on this whole origin story of ice cream because it's way more ancient and way less straightforward than those charming little tales we might have picked up along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Forget that image of Marco Polo strolling back from China with a secret frozen recipe tucked in his pocket, or Catherine de' Medici suddenly whipping up a batch to impress the French court, or even Thomas Jefferson, single-handedly bringing the frozen gospel to America.
Right, those are good stories, but
It turns out people have been indulging in chilled desserts for literally thousands of years.
that's right. The history article we have actually points to evidence of chilled desserts as far back as 4000 BC in Mesopotamia.
4000 BC.
That's right. I mean, can you imagine? Even back then, people were finding ways to beat the heat with something icy and delicious. And what's even more remarkable is that this craving for something cold and sweet seems to be like a deeply ingrained human experience. It's not just a Mesopotamian thing. It pops up independently in various ancient cultures.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So it wasn't just an isolated incident, this desire for frozen treats. It was like bubbling up all over the ancient world.
Exactly. Like, think about it. You have vendors in ancient Athens selling snow to chill drinks. Even the infamous Roman Emperor Nero.
Nero. The fiddling while Rome burned Nero.
Well, probably not actually fiddling, but yes, that Nero. He apparently loved himself some honey-sweetened ice concoctions. Talk about a sweet way to, escape the pressures of ruling an empire.
Or escape the paperwork, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. But, if we zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, it really highlights how the fundamental idea of enjoying something cold and refreshing, it's not confined to a specific time or place. People all over the world, throughout history, have figured this out.
It's a very human desire, isn't it?
It is. And speaking of human ingenuity, we have to give a shout out to the Tang Dynasty in China for their sweet drink made from iced water buffalo milk.
Water buffalo milk.
That's right. And flavored with camphor. Now that sounds like an interesting flavor combination.
Camphor. So like a cough drop, but colder?
Something like that, perhaps. But hey, gotta admire the creativity here.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to something a little more familiar, something we all know and love, sherbet.
Ah, sherbet.
The history article we have notes that it was quite important in the Islamic world. And it's actually really interesting that our word sherbet in English comes from the Turkish word, which referred to a whole range of sweetened drinks, often made extra refreshing with, a bit of snow.
It makes you wonder how those early frozen treats evolved and spread across different cultures, doesn't it?
It does.
Like take the Persian falada, for
The
example.
Lurifella?
Yeah, it's got these delicate vermicelli noodles suspended in chilled syrup. And then there's the Indian kulfi,
Kulfi,
which
yeah.
is this wonderfully dense, almost like a frozen custard that's molded into various shapes. These are both highlighted as early examples of frozen desserts. And what's really striking is that the first confirmed records of kulfi appear around the same time as the earliest European frozen desserts.
So different parts of the world were experimenting with similar ideas at the same time. That's so cool.
It is. It speaks to a kind of like a global desire for frozen treats, doesn't it?
It really does. Now, here's where things get really interesting, and this is according to the history article. The real game changer happened in the 13th century Arab world.
Ooh, tell me more.
They discovered that mixing salt with ice could actually create a much lower freezing point.
Oh yeah, the exothermic reaction.
Exactly. The salt basically helps the ice get much colder than it would on its own.
Yeah.
It's like giving your ice a turbo boost in the chilling department.
I like that, a turbo boost. And it was more than just, a cool science experiment. It had a very real impact on how they made frozen treats.
It was a total game changer.
Right. By submerging containers of liquid mixtures in this, like super chilled, salty ice bath, and then stirring them frequently, they could prevent those big, unpleasant ice crystals from forming.
So they basically figured out how to make a smoother, scoopable frozen treat. It wasn't just a chilled drink anymore. They were getting closer and closer to what we now know as ice cream.
Exactly. And that's a significant leap forward, wouldn't you say?
A massive leap. So no single light bulb moment with a lone inventor, but rather this gradual, fascinating evolution of techniques.
A collaborative effort across cultures and time.
Exactly. Now let's hop over to Europe. The history article tells us that the first European ice creams and water ices likely appeared in Italy in the early 1600s.
Okay, so a little later than those Catherine de' Medici stories would have us believe.
Right. The legends are fun, but the historical evidence points to Italy a bit later. But by the 1620s, we start seeing descriptions of water ice desserts popping up. And by the mid-17th century, they were being served at all those fancy banquets in Paris, Florence, Naples, you name it.
So it was becoming a fashionable treat among the European elite.
It was all the rage. And it even made it across the English Channel, because the article mentions a record from 1672 where an Englishman, Elias Ashmole, noted that one plate of ice cream was served to King Charles II the previous year.
Ooh, fancy. Imagine being a guest at that royal feast.
Right. The king is being served ice cream must have been quite a sensation. And then, just a few years later, in 1694, an Italian steward named Antonio Latini published a recipe in Naples for a milk sorbet.
Milk sorbet, that's interesting.
I know, right? And get this, it featured candied pumpkin as the flavoring.
Candied pumpkin. Wow, that's a blast from the past. So basically an early, and maybe slightly strange to our modern tastes, version of a pumpkin spice latte, but frozen.
Exactly. Pumpkin spice latte's ancient, icy ancestor. Now, let's sail across the Atlantic and see how ice cream made its way to America.
Let's do it.
The history article tells us that ice cream actually came over with the European colonists and was being served in colonial Maryland as early as 1744.
So it wasn't solely an American invention. It had already taken root in the colonies.
Exactly. And those big names we often associate with early American ice cream, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they definitely played a part in popularizing it.
They're big fans, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Washington, in 1784, he actually bought himself a pretty fancy mechanical ice cream maker for his Mount Vernon estate.
The man had a serious sweet tooth, it seems.
He did.
Yeah.
And Jefferson, who probably had his first taste of ice cream while he was serving as a diplomat in Paris, he was a huge fan, too.
I can just imagine him, hosting those fancy dinners at Monticello, serving up bowls of ice cream.
And the article mentions that he actually served ice cream at the presidential mansion on at least 6 occasions.
That's amazing. He clearly loved it.
He did. And what's even cooler is that out of all the recipes he ever wrote down, and we're talking just 10 in total, one of them was for French-style vanilla ice cream, and it was fortified with egg yolks.
Oh, wow. That sounds rich and decadent.
Super fancy.
But, as fascinating as those early days are, it's the late 19th century, as the history article points out, when things really started to, to cool down in a very innovative way in the American ice cream scene.
This is when things really take off. We're talking about the birth of some truly iconic American treats.
This is where the fun begins.
Exactly. So first up, we have the ice cream soda, invented in Philadelphia in 1874. Just imagine that first fizzy rush combined with the creamy melt of the ice cream.
Pure genius.
Absolutely. And then a few years later, around 1881, we get the ice cream sundae.
Ah, the sundae. And it's funny how many Midwestern towns claims to be its birthplace.
It's like a delicious mystery.
The history article suggests that the name likely came about because of those blue laws that prohibited the selling of soda drinks on Sundays.
Yeah.
So they would just serve the ice cream without the soda, and it became, a sundae.
A sundae. I never thought about that.
And eventually that morphed into the sundae.
That's brilliant. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah,
Right?
it really is. And the innovations just kept on coming.
Oh, yeah. In the 1880s, we get the patenting of edible ice cream cups.
No more sticky fingers.
Exactly. Plus, milkshakes, which were initially marketed as a health drink, started gaining popularity.
A health drink, huh?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Talk about a rebranding success story.
Right. From dubious health tonic to gloriously thick sweet treat. And then, as we move into the 20th century, the innovations just keep on churning. The waffle cone makes its grand entrance at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair.
Oh, the waffle cone. That's a good one.
And supposedly, it was invented because a vendor ran out of cups.
Really? So, a happy accident.
Exactly. Serendipity at its finest. And then, of course, we have the popsicle, patented in 1923.
A classic.
Such a simple idea, but it's a timeless classic. And then in the mid-1930s, we have the development of soft serve, with both Dairy Queen and Carvel coming onto the scene.
That smooth, swirly, instantly gratifying goodness.
And for those wanting something a little bit different, frozen yogurt enters the scene in the 1970s.
The slightly tangier take on the frozen treat.
Exactly. It's really amazing to see how this basic desire for something cold and sweet has transformed into this huge industry with so many different options.
It really has. And the history article concludes with this really surprising fact. There's actually a soft serve machine in Antarctica.
What? In Antarctica?
Yeah. Apparently, a Frosty Boy at McMurdo Station is a real morale booster for the scientists stationed there.
Wow, even at the bottom of the world, the ice cream craving persists.
It's a universal desire, it seems.
It really is. Okay, so we've journeyed through the frosty timeline of ice cream history. Now, let's get down to specifics, starting with gelato. The Wikipedia entry clears up something right off the bat. In Italian, gelato simply means frozen.
Which makes sense.
It does, but in English, when we say gelato, we're referring to a very specific Italian-style ice cream.
Right. It's not just any frozen dessert that gets called gelato in English. There are certain things that set it apart.
Absolutely. And the Wikipedia highlights a few key differences. First of all, gelato typically has a lower butterfat content, usually between 6 and 9%, compared to the higher fat content you find in many American ice creams.
So it's a little bit lighter on the fat.
Exactly. And it's also less airy. The Wikipedia says it usually has around 35% air incorporated, which is significantly less than what you find in American ice cream.
So you're getting more actual gelato per scoop.
Exactly. And that lower air content, it's often referred to as lower overrun in the industry.
That's right. And that lower overrun, combined with a higher proportion of flavoring, results in that signature, dense, rich texture and more intense flavor that gelato is known for.
It's like a flavor punch.
Exactly. And I've also noticed that they often serve gelato differently, too. Instead of using a scoop, they use this flat spade. Do our sources have any insights into why that is?
They do. The Wikipedia mentions this traditional serving method with a spade, and it's partly because of that denser consistency of gelato. The spade is better suited for handling that firmer texture, plus it makes for a very elegant presentation.
It does. Now, let's dig into the history of gelato itself. The Wikipedia mentions some key figures from the 16th century. It credits Cosimo Ruggieri with creating fior di latte, which sounds wonderfully simple.
And Bernardo Guantalenti with gelato alla crema. These guys were apparently big players in the early days of gelato.
They were pioneers. And it's interesting to note the connection back to Catherine de' Medici again, with Ruggieri supposedly creating fior di latte for her court.
Bringing it full circle.
It's exactly. However, the Wikipedia also reminds us that sherbet was introduced to Sicily much earlier, in the 9th century, which shows just how long and frosty the history of frozen desserts is in that region.
A very long and chilly lineage. And then, of course, we have Francesco Procopio de Cotelli in the late 17th century. The Wikipedia calls him the father of Italian gelato.
Quite a title.
He was the one who brought his gelato-making skills and presumably some amazing recipes to Paris. He opened the legendary Café Procope and basically introduced gelato to a much wider audience across Europe.
So he wasn't just making it for the nobility anymore. He was bringing it to the people.
And with a royal license from Louis XIV, no less.
Talk about a seal of approval. That kind of accessibility, combined with that royal endorsement, really helps solidify gelato's place in European culinary culture.
Absolutely. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we have Bruno Carpigiani inventing the first automated gelato machine in 1945.
That must have been a game changer in terms of production.
A total game changer. It made gelato so much more readily available to the masses. And just for fun, the Wikipedia shares that the world's largest ice cream cone was created in Rimini, Italy in 2011.
The world's largest.
It was over 9 feet tall and weighed a whopping 150 pounds.
Wow, that's one series ice cream cone.
You'd need a whole team to eat that thing. Okay, so we've got gelato covered. Now let's talk about sherbet.
Ah, sherbet.
The Wikipedia and the Egain Kosh unit give us some good insights here.
Let's hear it.
The Wikipedia explains that sherbet contains water, sugar, dairy, like milk or cream, and flavoring, which is typically fruit. And the key difference between sherbet and sorbet is that berry component. Sorbet is dairy-free.
So sorbet is the lighter, fruitier option, while sherbet brings in that creamy element, though not as much as ice cream.
Exactly. And the word sherbet itself has a fascinating history. The Wikipedia points out that it comes from the Persian word sharba, which referred to an iced fruit drink. And it's actually quite interesting that English is the only major European language that directly borrowed the Turkish word sherbet for this specific type of dessert.
Like a little linguistic souvenir.
Exactly. The Wikipedia also mentions that sherbet actually became more popular in the U.S. during World War II because cream was scarce, and sherbet uses more milk than cream.
So a wartime adaptation.
Exactly, and both sources emphasize that traditionally, sherbet was made with real fruit.
Which makes sense for that bright, refreshing flavor.
Totally. And the Egain Kosh unit adds some really insightful details. It points out that sherbets tend to be sweeter than ice cream with a more pronounced tartness because of the higher sugar and fruit acid content.
So it's got that sweet and tangy kick.
Exactly. And it also mentions that sherbet has a greater cooling effect on the palate because of its slightly coarser texture and lower melting point. You get that immediate icy refreshment.
It's like a taste bud wake-up call.
It is. Okay, so we've navigated the history and the core differences between ice cream, gelato, and sherbet. Now, get ready for a wild ride because we're about to dive headfirst into the world of modern ice cream flavors, courtesy of that incredible Forbes article.
Buckle up, taste buds.
Exactly. Forget your vanilla, your chocolate, your strawberry. These culinary artists are taking frozen desserts to a whole new level.
This is where the creativity really shines.
Okay, first up, we have cheddar and sour cream potato chip ice cream.
Wait, what?
I know, right? Your eyebrows probably just did a little dance of confusion. But the chef at Heritage Restaurant and Caviar Bar, where this creation is served, insists it's weirdly delicious and equally nostalgic. And get this, it's topped with caviar.
Caviar. Wow, that's a bold move.
It's a collision of high and lowbrow in a single scoop.
I'm intrigued, but I don't know if I'm brave enough to try it.
Maybe we can split a scoop later.
We'll see.
Next up, we're heading to Plano, Texas for Vietnamese coffee ice cream from Churn and Bake. Now, this one actually sounds delicious. It's inspired by that intense, almost bitter Vietnamese coffee, perfectly balanced with sweet condensed milk.
Oh, that sounds good.
And their version kicks it up a notch with espresso, swirls of marshmallow fluff, and chunks of fudge stripe cookies.
It's like a coffee break and a dessert all in one.
Exactly. Now, how about some olive oil ice cream?
Olive oil in ice cream.
I know, it sounds strange, but this is a creation from L'Antica Pizzeria da Michele in Naples, a legendary pizza place. And the pastry chef there, he loves it. It's surprisingly simple, just cream, sugar, milk, and a sprinkle of sea salt, and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil.
So Italian simplicity with a savory twist.
Exactly. From savory to celebrity sparkle, next we have Selena Loves Lemons. This is a collaboration between Selena Gomez and the Astor Hotel in Hollywood. It's a bright and tart frozen yogurt served inside a hollowed-out lemon.
Ooh, that's cute.
I know, right? Super Instagrammable. Next, we're off to Los Angeles for saffron and pistachio ice cream at Bar Bar. It's inspired by Indian flavors and the chef's memories of eating pistachio kulfi.
Oh, kulfi is delicious.
This version is creamy and has a delicate hint of cardamom.
A lovely blend of sweet and savory.
Totally. And how about some history in a scoop with La Zebra's Torilla ice cream in Tulum?
Torilla. Interesting.
The chef wanted to pay tribute to the history of corn tortillas, which goes back thousands of years.
That's a unique concept.
It is. And for a flavor explosion, there's Bati Purple Ube, ice cream from Joy by 7 Reasons in Washington, D.C. Ube is a Filipino purple yam, and this ice cream is topped with bee pollen, peanut caramel, honeycomb toffee, lemon ginger syrup, and waffle pieces.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Oh,
Literally.
It sounds intense.
It does.
And for perhaps the most unexpected ingredient, there's hay, ice cream from the Callicoon Wine Merchant in the Catskills. It's made with local hay.
Hey, you're getting right.
Nope. Apparently, as the hay dries, it develops this aroma that's reminiscent of honey and cinnamon.
Well, that's certainly different.
It is. And then there's fried milk ice cream from Uchi restaurants, which is so popular they sell it by the pint. It's basically a sweet cream ice cream with blondie crumble and salt fudge sauce.
That sounds decadent.
Super decadent. Kimton Mazolas in Baja California has popcorn ice cream.
Popcorn.
And they use a lot of ingredients from their own gardens, like passion fruit, soursop, rosemary, and lavender.
So fresh and local.
Exactly. Wanderlust Creamery in Southern California has sticky rice and mango ice cream inspired by the Thai dessert.
Oh, that sounds good.
And Momofuku Noodle Bar in NYC has seasonal pineapple and yuzu soft serve.
Yuzu is delicious.
It is. And back to the savory sweet realm, Haybird Ice Cream in San Antonio has chicken and waffles ice cream.
They put chicken in ice cream.
They make a caramel from chicken stock and a waffle batter from rendered chicken skin.
Wow, that's some serious dedication.
It is. Wildweed in Cincinnati has beeswax ice cream, where they infuse whole bricks of beeswax into the base.
Beeswax.
And sometimes they top it with truffle, honey, and fennel pollen.
So that fancy.
Super fancy. Kwai Fei in Charleston has a Sichuan sundae with vanilla ice cream, chili crisp, and Sichuan candied peanuts.
Spicy.
Definitely. Happy Ice Cream in D.C. offers buttered toast and jam ice cream on sourdough cones.
That's a creative combination.
It is. Durango Casino and Resort has a PB&J gelato inspired by Uncrustables.
Simple but classic.
And Ruby Scoops in Richmond, Virginia has mayo ice cream.
Mayo.
They replace the egg yolks and cream in the base with Duke's mayo.
Wow, that's different.
It is. And lastly, the Forbes article mentions the growing trend of alcohol-infused ice creams like peach and bourbon and cake batter vodka martini.
So you can have your cocktail and eat it too.
Exactly. That is a whirlwind of flavors. I'm amazed by the creativity out there. Now, for those of you who are inspired to make your own ice cream at home, but maybe you don't have an ice cream maker, the Handle the Heat article has some great tips.
It's good to have options.
It is. The article highlights this super simple 2-ingredient ice cream method. All you need is heavy cream and sweetened condensed milk.
2 ingredients, that's it.
That's it. You whip the cream, fold in the condensed milk and any flavorings you want, and freeze it.
Easy peasy.
And for those who want to try a more traditional ice cream base but still don't have a machine, the article suggests freezing the mixture in a zip-top bag and then processing it in a food processor or blender.
Clever.
It is. The article also has tons of flavor ideas like cheesecake, mint chip, peanut butter, cinnamon roll, caramel with bourbon, Sauvmores, blueberry swirl, you name it.
So no excuses. Get churning, or, well, not churning, as the case may be.
Exactly. Okay, we've talked history, we've talked flavors, we've even talked about making ice cream at home. Now let's get a little scientific and look at the standards that govern ice cream, thanks to the E. Deinkosh unit. It explains that ice cream is basically a 3-phase system: liquid, air, and solid.
The holy trinity of frozen treats.
Exactly. The liquid base, the air bubbles, and the frozen ice crystals all working together to create that perfect scoop.
And each ingredient plays a specific role.
Absolutely. Milk fat, of course, is key for that rich flavor and smooth texture. And the unit points out that there are actually legal minimums for fat content in order for something to be called ice cream.
So you can't just freeze anything and call it ice cream.
Nope, there are rules. And then we have milk solids not fat, or MSNF, which includes proteins, lactose, and minerals. These are important for the body and texture of the ice cream.
And lactose adds sweetness too.
It does. And then there are sweeteners, which are obviously there to make the ice cream taste good, but they also affect the freezing point and the handling properties of the mix.
So it's not just about sweetness.
Nope, it's science. And then there are stabilizers, which are the unsung heroes of ice cream. They prevent those big ice crystals from forming, giving us that smooth texture we all love.
They work hard behind the scenes.
They do. And then there are emulsifiers, which also contribute to a smoother texture and help the mix incorporate air and be whipped effectively.
So many factors at play.
I know, right? And the unit also emphasizes the importance of total solids, which is everything in the ice cream mix that's not water. These are important for the viscosity and body of the ice cream.
But too much can make it heavy and soggy.
Exactly. And let's not forget about water and air. Air, or overrun, is super important for the texture and quality of the ice cream, and it also affects the cost and even legal standards.
That's right. There are actually limits on how much air can be incorporated into ice cream and still legally call it ice cream.
You can't just sell people a container of air.
Exactly.
And finally, there are flavorings and colorings, which are all about consumer preferences and creating those visual and taste associations.
It's all about making the ice cream appealing.
Exactly. The Gankosh unit also breaks down different grades of ice cream based on their milk fat content, from minimum to super premium.
Like a ranking system for ice cream.
Exactly. And to add a global perspective, the unit mentions the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, PFA, in India, and the Bureau of Indian Standard, BIS, which sets standards for ice cream in India.
Interesting to see how different countries regulate ice cream.
It is. And the unit even includes this incredibly long list of different classifications of ice cream and related frozen desserts. It's like a frozen dessert encyclopedia.
The variety is astounding.
It really is. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Let's quickly recap some of the highlights. We've learned that ice cream has a surprisingly long and fascinating history, dating back thousands of years and spanning across different cultures. We've clarified the differences between gelato and ice cream, and we've been amazed by the sheer creativity and sometimes bizarreness of modern ice cream flavors. And who knew making ice cream at home could be so simple, even without a machine?
It's been quite a journey.
It has. So here's a final thought for you to ponder. With such a rich history and an almost limitless array of flavor possibilities, what does your own personal favorite ice cream flavor reveal about you? Is it a nostalgic choice? An adventurous one? Maybe this deep dive has inspired you to try a new flavor or even make your own ice cream creation.
It's a fun way to think about this beloved treat.
We encourage you to go out and explore the world of ice cream even further. Maybe research the history of your favorite flavor, try to recreate a unique concoction you heard about, or just support your local ice cream shop. There's always something new and delicious to discover in the world of frozen desserts.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of ice cream. Until next time, stay cool and keep those spoons ready.
Cheers to that.